Did you ever meet someone and feel like you've known them all your life? I bumped into Kevin Soller, an excavator operator, while I was at Louisville in Kentucky for the Utility Expo exhibition. Never met him before, but an hour later we were still talking. Turns out Kevin was a former professional cyclist. He's an adrenaline junkie. He also operates one of the most complicated excavators in the world, and he does it in some of the most remote, pristine and challenging conditions you can possibly imagine. So this is my conversation with Kevin. Okay, Kevin, look, obviously you and I met in Kentucky, and I did find your story absolutely fascinating. Take me back to the beginning. You were telling me about your slightly unusual route into the whole construction world.
Man, if you want to dive all the way back, I was the little kid with Tonka toys. I was the little kid with the sandbox that I was infatuated with machinery. That led me into kind of making a decision at one point, but I had a split career going that I don't know if a lot of people in the machine world actually know it, but I raced bicycles professionally for 9 years. All throughout that time that I was racing bicycles, I was working for an excavation company in Colorado that would allow me to bulk work when I was in town, and then I would take off and go race. Years of that going on, I started to make the decisions after, I would say, countless injuries that I really wanted to put the foot forward on the machine career. One aspect I don't really know if I talked to you about in Kentucky, but I actually had one of my first job offers from stealing an excavator when I was 16 years old. Yeah, there was a lot of construction going on in our hometown, and being from a very young age, I would watch where guys would put their keys at the end of the day. It's very aware of that they were always on the machine somewhere. And me and a couple friends decided to go figure out if we could find some of these keys. And it happened to be Father's Day as well, which provided a little bit more chaos into my life, but found some keys to an excavator, and we didn't destroy anything, but we were literally picking up rocks out of the pile and putting them back into the pile. And all of a sudden, 6 police cars showed up, and I wasn't technically arrested, but I was put in custody. And being that I grew up in a very small town in Colorado, my father knew whose machines it was and made me go apologize to the owner of the company. And he had not heard anything. The police didn't even go to him because we didn't really do any damage. But I explained the whole story to him, which pretty much told him myself to the man. And after I explained where everything happened, he asked me where were the keys, and I told him those ones were actually in the ignition. And he looked at me, because I was 16 years old at the time, and said, most kids your age are getting in trouble for underage drinking or other partying activities, and you're out here stealing tractors. So he just looked at me and said, do you want a job? And I ended up working for that company for about 2 years.
Wow. I guess that begs the question now. I mean, we'll get on to where you work and how remote it is, but are you very careful about where you leave your keys now?
I make jokes. I make videos about it on my Instagram a lot, that even when I am in the middle of the woods, halfway up the mountain, I lock my cab. And I've had people ask me, why do you do that? And I said, because there's individuals like myself moving around, and there's the joysticks in my machine alone are far more expensive than a lot of other machines. So I just don't want to run the risk of someone opening the door and playing around with something that they don't really know what they're doing.
You mentioned that, actually. I actually saw you first when you were behind the controls of a Menzi Muck machine, which is a crazy machine anyway. But didn't you say there's like more than 20 functions on each joystick?
With my changeovers on my fingertips, it's, I think, 22 functions per hand, 3 different pedals. Now, primary controls, I'm running 2 pedals, and then 12, 16. It's a lot. I think that's one of the most overwhelming parts when I first got into that machine. Is, for me, it was like getting into a motor grader the first time. You're staring at the antler rack and everything is staring at you. From my experiences with the spider, it's really taught me an awful lot. And it's the foundation that I tell everyone in every aspect of operating, that learning how to make the machine do what you want is how you become an operator. I have put in a lot of hard work to work on my skills, but I'm not special. I'm literally I have no college education. I am an enthusiast that turned into an operator, but I had to teach myself the spatial awareness of this machine. And that was one of the hardest learning curves, but it's every machine in general is learning how to make it do what you want. So when I have the opportunity with Menzi Muck and All Mountain Construction to go train other operators in these machines where they're not used to it, I simplify it. I remove their mindset from staring at 18 of the functions. Just let's go back to learning how to walk. I know how to run, but you're not going to be able to do that quick. I know what that machine is going to do and how it's going to react. And that is the learning curve that is really hard with the spider excavator and I still tell people, you need a very open mind to operating these machines, because I've never seen a lot of the mechanism and the positionings. I'm constantly figuring out new processes and new limits, and I toe that line. I have absolutely puckered myself on, I need to do a certain move because of a cliff, a tree, a rock, whatever. Environmental impact we have to avoid, sensitive areas, all these different facets that just add up, that sometimes I can't do a rudimentary move. So I have to do very calculated, pretty aggressive moves. Now, I work for a man that does not push me. Brian understands that if I don't think it can be done, he's not going to tell me, well, that's the job. And I think that's why I've been successful as I have been. Some of these photos behind me are some of the most precarious areas that I've ever put machines. It's a slight line of, I move with confidence over cockiness. There is times that I have to push that fear away, but I also have to be very aware that in some of these situations, that if I make a wrong move, I'm not going to be around. And that's a reality that I work with, that I don't send photos and videos to my parents, especially until I'm done with a project. I've put machines in areas that, a lot of the operators and spiders have put these things in places that if you were to lose footing or flip, it's going to be a fatality.
Let's go back. We'll come on to the complexities and certainly the logistics of what you do for a living. But going back, when you were 16 years old and your one attempt at stealing an excavator, how did you know how to drive? Was it just a kind of a natural thing, or had you been watching me very closely?
Oh, man. So when I was probably I was very young. I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I would ride my bike to job sites and find an area. My father always told me, if you get close enough to get hit by the machines, it's your own damn fault. And I would go watch. I was mainly enthused with the excavators and the motor graders. Dozers, it was hard for me to see the controls just because of the cab. I couldn't really see what they were doing, but excavators, especially if a guy had a door open, I was starting to see what their hands were doing. And inadvertently, I was learning. At that time, I didn't know the difference between Caterpillar and John Deere controls, and now the long list of everything else, Gradalls and everything else. But I started to pick up that their left hand, most guys were running cat controls, their left hand, left and right, was spinning the cab. And it was a little bit of dip my toe. I had a couple opportunities at a young age. My father was a superintendent at a golf course, so he had backhoes. I definitely was not really allowed to roam around his shop after a certain age when I figured out how to start machines with clutches. Joyriding has been apparently a thing of mine for a while. But yeah, it was, and this is the way that I learned really well, is that I watched a lot of really good operators throughout my career. I also watched some guys that I learned what not to do. But I've always explained it to new employers that if I am just sitting there watching, it's not me spacing out. I am memorizing what you are doing. I think one of my favorite things that I was told is learn how to make the machine sing, not yell. You watch guys that are just hard. They beat the living crap out of these machines. And when I first started in excavation, there used to be stickers in the cabs that said that this machine can't work, neither can you. And I haven't really seen a lot of those so much anymore, but I take care of this machine. But learning that there is a fine line, you can hear the pump start squealing. You can just feel if it's rough on the machine, it's beating the hell out of you. So watching guys that were really smooth in adverse terrain was really appealing to me.
Now, obviously, you said the first attempt at operating was with let's call it a borrowed excavator. I'm not an operator, but I can drive an excavator. I wouldn't even dream of operating a Menzi Muck. That's a big step up, isn't it?
I will not forget the first time, because I had 10 years in conventional machinery before I started working for Brian at All Mountain Construction running spiders. And it took him 2 years to vet me it's in the machine world, but there's a lot of, I'll just refer to it as dick measuring, where I can do anything you can and ego runs. And I have always been someone that I've gotten better. I do speak up for myself now. I trust myself. I have my confidence, but I was very nervous. I was very nervous when he gave me a shot, knowing that the terrain that I was going into is something that I've never seen, but could I actually do this? And the amount of mental gymnastics that I did that first year, I still remember the first day with Brian. He was working, he was masticating a slope, and I was in the machine that I was in for the first couple of years. And he showed me just rudimentary movements. And he did a very unique thing that I've never really had a boss do, is he just left. He didn't hover over me. He didn't, don't do that. Like, he gave me you really need to be careful of this and this, but you need to also figure out what works best for you. And I pushed myself up onto probably about a 25-degree slope. So in comparison to what I've been on now, I've been 60 degrees. 25 degrees is pretty minimal. But he walked down and he said, okay, now you're up on the slope. I need you to stick that boom all the way out 27 feet away from you and spin in a circle. And I remember looking at him and said, absolutely not. Because I'd been on slopes and excavators, and he kind of laughed. And said, you got to learn how to trust it. And that's the whole dynamic of these machines that is so different than everything else, is that I can get away with pretty aggressive movements based on the stability that I have. But keeping in mind that there's always the unknown. Are you actually planted? Are you on good material? Are you going to lose a front leg? Is your back leg all the way down? There's these sensitivities that you start to train your body how to react to. I refer to it as butt cheek dexterity. I can tell through the seat if I don't have a leg that's totally grounded. And it's training new guys when they are in the seat for the first time what that's. And it's like running a backhoe with the stabilizers up, is that I'm on 4 tires. So yes, I do have claws on the front side that I can put down, but you're always bouncing. And when I first got into spiders, I didn't have any of these skill sets. So it opened up this whole new world of things that I had to train myself how to do. And I think that's what's kept it so exciting for me over the years, is I've been in machinery since 2006 or 2007, and I've got tens of thousands of hours in everything. And it's the fun games that are involved with learning how to make that machine do what I want has kept me so engaged over the years, is that I don't look at everything as rudimentary. If you zoom out far enough in every aspect of life, it's repetitive. But in my scope of work, we do a lot of ski lift installations. I've worked on 358 ski lift towers since 2017 alone. Every one of those towers, every one of those foundations has provided a different skill set of technicality that I think that's what I enjoy the most, is that there's so much variety with what my work site is that keeps me heavily engaged.
Are you an adrenaline junkie?
Yes, absolutely. Part of having raced bicycles professionally, I spent time on the road racing in Europe. I switched back to racing cross country, and then I raced downhill and enduro. I have a street bike right now. My friends hate it. They think it's a death wish. To me, it's an interesting place that I go. I started wearing a heart rate monitor a couple years ago when I was in the machine. And when I'm in actually pretty aggressive terrain, my heart rate drops. I'm functioning around the low 40s, 50s for a heartbeat. I will spike if things happen, but for the most part, my baseline is pretty low, and it's a calm sense. It seems chaotic. I've definitely had people that I'm working for express their nervousness over what I'm doing, and I will listen to anyone, but at the end of the day, the reason that I have a very lackadaisical approach, especially with new contractors. I don't need to stress them out. I don't need to tell them that if I don't make this one move that I need to do, I'm going to have a very bad day. It's something that I will spend the time, and if I really need to redirect where I'm going with the machine, I'll have that conversation. But I think that's been a characteristic a lot of people have been surprised about, is my calm nature, joking nature, especially on job sites, that I try to keep it fun inside the cab. The voices going through my head, the conversations I have are entertaining, to say the least. I've gotten somewhat of a following with some of the ridiculous voices that I've done over the years, but it's a place that when the stress is high, I function very well. So for whatever reason, I'm not sure where that came in my life, but functioning with high adrenaline is probably why I ended up where I did.
It was a sentence you said to me in Kentucky that really stuck with me when you were describing your working environment. And you actually said you have been at work before now, and you've actually thought, yeah, I could die today. And it wasn't the fact that you said it, it was the fact that you said it as calmly as you did. Like you had really analysed this, and this was almost a part of your job. That risk was part of your job.
I have enough time now that I have to really focus on the complacency. I think anyone that's in an industry for as long as they are, they start to get very comfortable with their general scenario. And I have a lot of those. I have a lot of those places that I still fall back on the racing. I know how to push myself mentally and physically, but I also know where that line is. I've had near misses. I've had machine shift in areas that I didn't want to move at all. One of which was Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I was trying to cover up an old footing, and I was quite literally on the edge. I was within 8-10 feet of a 200-foot vertical drop. There was not an area that I could winch, so I wasn't tethered to anything. And it wasn't, okay, this is just dangerous. It was the way that I needed to run the machine and manipulate the machine. I needed to be unhooked. I needed full accessibility. But when I was shifting this rock, the whole machine shifted 2 feet downhill, and I have my brake line. I know exactly where in the dirt, if I get to this point, I need to stop what I'm doing, because with spiders, you use the boom a lot to push yourself. With the 4-wheel drive machine, I do have the ability to spin around and pull myself up things, but at that point, you're completely blind to any terrain that's behind you. And it's not to say that the machine will stay there. So those days that I am going into what I refer to as the death zones, I do treat very seriously. My attitude on the front side that around me is very lackadaisical, but what people don't understand is how much I'm processing. Jackson Hole actually did a phenomenal video where they put a bit of an insight of what I actually do with the installation of a ski resort. The video is on YouTube. It's Sublet Spins On, and it's a phenomenal video because a lot of times people don't actually understand how these foundations come to be. But the woman filming was interviewing me before I was moving into this tower that I was just talking about, where I was 200-foot cliff. And she didn't put it in the video, and I wish she would have, but she asked me, what goes through your mind when you're getting ready to sit on a 200-foot cliff like that? And in a very straight face, I just simply looked at her and said, well, right now I'm currently stuck on when they make spaghetti. Is it one noodle they cut up a bunch of times or a bunch of noodles they cut once and then package it? And she pulled the camera aside. She said, are you serious? I said, I'm very serious right now. I am very aware that if I make a foul move, it's going to be the end of me. But I have been mentally analyzing what I need to do on this maneuver for about 3 weeks, that it's literally playing a puzzle game. And I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I think by putting all of that work in the way that I do, I had a couple things that I had to change on the fly, but for the most part, I was able to accomplish what I needed to without really, okay, this is not working. What am I going to do?
You've mentioned you've got a group of friends. You've also been on the bicycle racing circuit. So you certainly struck me as a pretty sociable kind of guy. And yet most of the time it's just you and your machine. You're in the middle of nowhere in places where you really wouldn't want to put a mountain go. Just you and your machine. How do you cope with that?
It's an interesting one. A lot of my friends this year, I got on the road. I shipped out on February 27th or 28th, and I just returned home a couple weeks ago. So I have a lot of friends across the country. I will say social media is a hell of a tool to keep engaged with my friends. My little videos that I do, I have a unique sense of humor. And I think that's what I'm not an influencer. I provide a comical outlook to what I'm doing. It's not just rudimentary. This is me digging in the dirt, but you learn how to deal with that independence. I think that's what runs a lot of people away, is that I actually enjoy it. It's challenging. It's challenging socially. It's challenging relationship wise, that I have a very high skill set that I have to be pretty much ready to go for months on end. That there's a difference between lonely and alone. There's times that I am alone for sure. The downfalls that everyone looks at with social media and everything else, I've learned to actually use that as an advantage, that I've made connections like yourself, people across the world, that we have similar interests, keep these conversations going, even just little messages. There's times that I can take phone calls on the machines. My parents generally, my mom's a little weary about trying to call me, and I always tell her, if I'm truly in spicy material, I won't answer. But I think one of the biggest boundaries that I have, and that my boss also understands, is that bigger life events, I can leave. I do have a very high skill set, but at the end of the day, it's not more important than me being alone for the rest of my life. So weddings, other big events in life, the voices that go through my head, I think, is what entertains me the most. I developed this uncanny ability to speak like Mickey Mouse over the years, and that's been one of the characters that I use when I'm in. It's almost a coping mechanism, but when I'm in really rowdy terrain, that voice comes out, and it's just audibly out loud. If there was a camera inside my cab at all times, I'm sure a psychiatrist would want to study me. But it's, oh my God, that's pretty far down there. It's just like, it just starts coming out, and I keep myself utterly entertained. That there's times that I'm by myself, but I look at the opportunities that I've been given. I've worked on the same job sites for the entire summer. To me, that's boring. So there's the pros and cons of the suitcase life, that it is challenging, but at the same time, you build these friendships and these families with some of the coworkers and the crews that I'm working for, that I've gotten to know these guys over the years, and we have a good time every time I'm around.
We've mentioned the mental side of what you do, but the physical side, that was one of the things I found most astonishing. If you are working on a ski lift installation, you're up a mountain somewhere in the middle of nowhere. How do you get by with things like fuel, and spare parts and the sort of thing that you would have readily to hand on a regular job site.
That is the aspect of my career that I will define as when things become work. Certain lift lines that we work on, we do have aerial assistance where sometimes they will fly a fuel tank on the line, but I still have to get the fuel from the tank to the machine. A lot of the environments that we work in, we don't have the availability to bring the machine up or down every single time I need fuel. Forest Service wants one lap in impact. They don't want the machine going up and down. So my fuel pack that I carry, so the Menzi Muck depends on what I'm doing with the attachments, but I have close to 3 days of fuel on the machine. It's 100 and something gallons, 45 in my day tank, 26 in my two lowers, that I can go for a couple days before I need to refuel, but then I need 100 something gallons. So this year, I don't have the number offhand, but I have probably packed close to 10,000 pounds of fuel. I carry 60 liters, 16 gallons at once. It's 120 pounds every morning, generally, sometimes 2 times a day, where I went and got a custom hunting pack. And it's a skeleton frame that I have 6-gallon can in the center and then 2 5s on the sides. That is the physical part of my job that sadistically I like it because I'm getting paid to work out. I'm in pretty damn good shape. Ski season is a big thing for me, and I always joke that every time I'm packing fuel, my legs are going to be ready for fuel or for skiing. But on those days when I'm going, I think my longest laps that I was doing this year was on a project close to my hometown, but I was on a lift line that I had access from the top and the bottom, and that's it. I could split and come in from the bottom, but obviously hiking uphill with fuel is a hell of a lot harder. But I was going downhill twice a day. My farthest tower site that I was hitting was 9/10 of a mile away and about 700 vertical feet. That is where, when I'm by myself, I have to be very aware that my footing, everything else, because I'm hiking, if I have a fuel pack and my day pack on, it's 140 pounds. I'm 165, so it's damn near my body weight on my back. That I spend the entire winter in the gym working out, getting ready to carry fuel, which is hilarious to me that I have to work out for my job. But at the same time, people in machinery are often very aware that lower back injuries and just fatigue, and most operators, and I'll put this based on the United States, are not physically fit. The hours that we work, the diets that a lot of people have start to wear down your body. And I have to be very aware of that when I work as much as I do and carry as much as I do, I need to be in top form. The mechanical aspect of it is the caveat that you can't really plan for. My boss does a hell of a job of preventative maintenance throughout the winter. I put 1,100 hours on that machine by myself alone this year, so there is wear and tear. I try to be very aware of my pre-walkthroughs every morning, hydraulic lines, everything, how they're going. This year I blew a cooling motor. The bearing shit the bed, and I was in a position that we couldn't do that surgery where I was. With the environment that we were in, we needed to get that machine down into a closed shop that we were opening up the entire guts of that engine. That it took me about 6 hours of, I would run the machine for sometimes a minute before I would start to overheat, shut down, let it sit, go again. And that's the outside the box thinking that you have to do with these machines, is that you can't get a service truck there. So fuel, grease, hydro, everything becomes a task. Hiking and wrenches just to work on your material is, I had to change my batteries one year, and those things are 120 pounds. And that's where it separates a lot of people, is that these machines are very appealing to a lot, but when they start to understand the manual labor that's behind them, it's a unbelievably powerful machine, but they are very finicky. You have to be aware. You have to use all your senses. I caught it instantly when the cooling motor went. Something was off. I didn't know exactly where it was, but I could hear an audible difference in what was going on. And I called my boss immediately. He and I called ideas, got out. Yep, that's what went. Can I run? Because it's that, am I going to make more damage by trying to get the machine out? And that's the hard part. A lot of people, contractors will say, oh, we'll help you carry fuel. And then they see the size of my fuel pack and they see how many times I need it. And oftentimes they just disappear. I like it. There's definitely the days when I'm hiking 5 rounds of fuel. If I need a full machine load, that I'm thoroughly destroyed at the end of it. But to me, that's the payoff for the areas that I get to work. I get to work in some of the most pristine mountainous wilderness in the United States, that if I have to pack fuel to keep that area looking the way it is without traveling the machine up and down every day, I will.
What does your working day look like on an average working day? Do you take breakfast at home? Is that something you do on the move? How does your day pan out?
I try to wake up early. I try to slow start my day, get coffee, breakfasts, but I'm generally on site from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., depending on crunch time. I think one of the biggest stresses in my life is when there's schedules put up by individuals that don't quite understand how long certain things take. With what I do, I'm just one entity in the lift building foundation. I do the excavation and the backfill. So they fly the foreman, they fly concrete in, generally with a Black Hawk helicopter or a K-Max. But from the time they finish concrete, there is an already scheduled deadline that they're going to stand steel. And that means that the helicopter is coming in to put steel on these foundations that I have to be done. Workloads with what we do, we can't touch everything, but between my boss and I, we are the predominant force in the ski lift industry in North America. That, of course, we'd like more operators, but there's not always the workload that you could keep 6 guys and 6 machines going. So there is absolutely times where we are just throttled. But from the time I'm on site till the time I'm done, I'm pretty much running. My food, I pack in 3 liters of water. I don't eat a lot during the day. I've found out throughout the years that I get lethargic if I eat a big meal. Going back into my racing, I know how to fuel myself. I have pretty high protein diets that gives me the energy to work throughout the entire day. But generally, by the time I come off the mountain, I could probably eat my shoe. That's the training part for me, and getting newer operators to understand that a lot of the contractors that we work with, they're all aware that we don't have the availability to run into town and get lunch. You have to bring everything you need. You need jackets. You need to be ready for the weather. You need to be ready for the amount of times that I've forgotten a headlamp and I've been walking out in the dark. Most times it's not unnerving, but wildlife is a big thing with where I'm working. I had a couple encounters with bull moose throughout the years that I would say they're mostly curious. Oftentimes they don't ever see machines where I am, so they're not really aggressive, but at the same time, an animal that's 9 feet tall and is known to run people over, you have to be aware of that. Mountain lions in certain areas that I work. I've been stalked once. That scared the living shit out of me, but at the same time, the cat was curious. I threw a stick at it, and then I hiked backwards all the way up the lift line, just watching it. And then a couple deer ran past me at the top. So I don't know if any of them got nabbed, but you're in the elements. And I think that's one of the parts of my job that I actually do enjoy, because I have to be self-sufficient. I don't have that easy out. I have to plan. It keeps me thoroughly engaged that if you do forget something, and everyone's done it, I think off the top of my head, I left my keys for the machine in my truck. I walked 30 minutes to the damn tractor and I had to turn around and go and get them. But if you have a mechanical, if you need something and you go all the way up the machine, you just lost an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. So being very well prepared is a part of my job. It's just all compiling stresses that there's so many layers that I have to be ready for on a daily basis, but I do enjoy it.
You've mentioned the terrain. It's hard to make it out on the size of the screen, but you've got some photographs of some of the places you've worked in the past, and your Instagram is astonishing. It's genuinely fantastic photography. When did that come about? Were you just looking around thinking, this is beautiful, or is that something you've always had a bit of a passion for?
I would say it started as a hobby. Honestly, genuine conversation with you has really started to motivate me to bring media more into my life, that there is such a unique workspace that I'm in to show it off. I've been fortunate to work with very good photographers. Shell Gerber, who used to be media guy for Bill Witt. He is now on his own. He came out and shot with me a couple of years ago. I have a couple of his photos downstairs. Mimicking photographers and seeing, I have the natural background in landscape that it is appealing. And it's, to me, some of that of being able to document. I wonder if it would look cool if I went over there and took a photo of the machine looking this way. And it's just trial and error. Some of them don't turn out as well as I want, but these photos that are behind me are my own images, and they're images that I would say it's all started from just being proud of what I've done, being able to show off, not in a cocky manner, but check this out. Look at this unbelievable area that I'm going into with these machines. Because one of the parts that I really enjoy about running the Spider is I can go into these areas behind me and leave a next to none footprint. Now, the machine doesn't do that. That's a combination of the machine and the operator. There is times that the terrain, you make a mess, but it's how you clean it up. Because at the end of the day, I want them to look like that when I leave. And to be able to put something that shouldn't be in an area that's so adverse and document it, to me, has been one of the appealing parts of my job. It gives me a moment, serenity or whatever you want, sipping coffee in the morning and watching the sunrise, and never taking for granted the opportunities and the places that I get to work. There's definitely been on the highway. It's not the most appealing. It's loud. But it's the areas when I'm alone that it provides this almost unsettling feeling of how small we all are in the world. And I think has led my character to be the way it is, that I'm very inquisitive. And I think that was one of the early conversations with you, is just that immediate, okay, we can connect over machinery. And it's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about this venue that I'm working in now is that I have friends from across the world. When I was at Bama, meeting individuals that I knew on Instagram, and now putting a name to a face, and we all have that same, you got to see this photo, and I can see what they're doing and have this absolute appreciation for their workmanship, their cleanliness, and just the utter astonishing areas that we are using advances in technology to put machinery in these areas that are, until years ago, was impossible.
One of the things you just mentioned there about the landscape, well, doing what I do for a living, I end up talking about safeguarding the environment a lot. And I'm all for it, but it's a bit of an intangible. I'm going to do my recycling, and I've run a hybrid car and things like that. But what you're doing, it's actually there all around you, isn't it? You are actually in the environment.
The way that I got started with that, I was still in conventional machinery, and there was a ski area development at my home ski area, Breckenridge, Colorado, and it was very he was either accepted or there was people that were very against it because of some of the areas that were going to be developed. Ski runs cut through the wilderness. And that was the first time that I took it upon myself. And I said, I have this skill set. I'm going to go to the company that is contracted to do the work. And if I can have my hands involved on making the best possible product with the least amount of disturbance, I'm going to do it. And I didn't really think much of it at the time, but that has curtailed into where I am today, is that I have an amazing relationship with a lot of the Forest Service rangers across the United States and areas that we've worked. They understand that I'm not walking around with a can of diesel just trying to light the environment on fire. These developments are going to happen no matter what. I hate to say it, but money will push it through no matter what. So if I can have my hands involved on, hey, we need to address this situation where there's a wetlands here, and let's look at alternative ways that we can access that. And it's these conversations that so many people want to hide from these entities, thinking that they're going to shut the job down no matter what. But if you have a simple conversation, I need to break my machine easement. If I have your blessing and I can go 100 feet up over here and over there, I can completely avoid this sensitive wetlands. And most oftentimes it's met with, we didn't even know that was an option. And there's a political spectrum, and I try to avoid a lot of that conversation. But the end of the day is, I don't know what's going on in the world, but I know if I can try in my own little venue the best that I can, I'm at least doing my part. And there's times that you have to crack eggs. There's times that you're going to have disturbance, but the end goal is ideally for a better product. And I have been put into that situation where a contractor wanted something done, and I said no. I will not forget a simple conversation of grading of a ski run. They wanted this wetlands removed, and I straight up told the contractor, I'm sorry, but that's not happening by my hands. And the guy looked at me and he said, most people don't tell me no. And I said, I understand that, but I have this moral compass that the out water is going down to that rancher that's down there, and they're pretty distraught over this development. But if we can at least play nice and keep their water access the same, this is how you become, to me, it's how I've moved throughout a lot of my life is I will speak my mind when I need to, but some of the jobs that I've done are the most rewarding is river restorations. The first job that I ever did in the Spider was cleaning up contaminants from the Manhattan Project. So where they fabricated the two bombs from World War II, I was in very classified terrain. I had full permission to be where I was, but I was cleaning up plutonium, mercury, uranium for the better good. Now, what they did with that, I have no idea. That's not my business, and they will not ever tell a contractor like me where it's going, but they're at least doing the right step in removing these things from the natural environment to hopefully a contained environment. And that's the part of my job that I love the most, is that I can look back on a lot of the areas that I've worked. And when someone asks me, how do you get the machine there? That's my favorite question, because I love to show them. I said, I went over there and did this and this. And that's essentially built my resume, is that when I returned to some of these resorts where the first time I was there, they were very inquisitive of, we want the right thing done. And rightfully so, they're going to vet you. But after a little bit of work, they understand that I separate all my material. I'm very clean with my work sites, and I have a plan from the time that I start digging. I don't just dig the hole and say, okay, now I got to figure out how to backfill it. To me, that's the game. It's a puzzle. When I can build retaining walls on the side of a mountain to hold the material in place, and it's a signature for me that they will outlive me. And that's a very exciting part for me. It's, what are we doing with our lives? That's a giant question. What's your meaning? What's your purpose? And I think that's what I've started to understand, is that I'm leaving this legacy behind me. I mean, skiing has been such a part of my life. To be back in that industry for a majority of our work, to ride a lift, to watch families, to watch that young kid that is now changing his entire perspective of the world. We can ride up a man-made, sure, it's great to hike up a mountain. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty awesome to ride up a lift when you don't have to do that, and to zoom out and realize that I'm just one very small, minuscule part of this, but it's a signature that's allowed me a lot of gratitude with what I've done.
Given your kind of philosophical outtake on all that, hauling litres and litres of fuel up a mountain, that's a young man's job, isn't it? Do you ever think about what the future holds?
Yes, my boss is 14 years older than me, and I can move at a pace that he is still will try to move toe to toe, but it's a young man's job. And where am I going to go with this? What am I going to do? Is that I can't be in this machine until I'm in my 60s. Physically, I will just be a wreck. I'm going to do it as long as I can, but there's that line that Brian has put in his work, and he has me, and he leans on me to take a lot of that load, to take a lot of the very stressed excavation sites, because he's had near misses. And it's not to say that I just ignore what he's gone through, but I still function well with the, okay, let's play with that adrenaline a little bit. But, you know, that end game it's an interesting conversation. I don't know if I know that answer the best. I've had opportunities with Menzi Muck directly to start doing trainings. To me, there is no competition in showing another company how to run these machines. If I can start to train the environments and the individuals that are running these machines to put out the quality of work that I hold myself to, it helps the entire industry. So being in a comfortable setting with newer operators training is definitely, it's a door that's opening, and I don't know where that's going to go entirely, but it's something that I do enjoy, is that I have a natural ability to connect with a lot of people in different venues. And if I can use my skill set to inadvertently market the machine to what they are completely possible of, and show these guys the world of opportunity they can have with this machine. And if you pay attention to this and this, there will be work there. It's an interesting one, though, that, you know, I get done at the end of the year and I'm exhausted. And I do wonder, where am I going to go with this? And I don't know if I have an answer directly for that yet, but I think the bigger question is, what could I find in my life that would fulfill the same cup that sitting in the machine does? And how could I get out of the machine for 12 to 14 hours a day and still have that cup be full and provide a service that I am proud of?
And I guess as a former athlete, you're very in tune with your body and your physical well-being. I'm sure you could wake up one day and your body just says, you know what, Kevin? Enough's enough. You need to go find something else.
That has been one. I have changed certain habits in my life because of that reason. I removed alcohol out of my life 7.5 years ago for the good of myself, selfishly, but physically as well. My body was starting to fall apart. From racing, I've had 10 major surgeries. I've broken a lot of different bones. I've had a lot of different pretty large injuries, and the reality is that I have an older brother that is in a wheelchair, not from running machinery, but from riding a bicycle. He was living his life. And I have now friends that have life-altering injuries, but they're making the most of it. But it's just that is, I have to be aware of how hard I'm pushing myself. Is it really worth it to carry that 140-pound pack every single damn day? Right now, I can do it, but there will be a point where that might just cripple me. And it's a terrifying thing. I still look at myself as the young kid, but I'm 37 years old. And there's days that I get up and arthritis and I can't move, and it's okay, we got to get the diesel engine going. She's cold today. Let's start the body moving. And you have to be aware that, unfortunately, I'm not going to be young and spry my entire life. And having gone through a lot of injuries, I know how to take care of myself. Sometimes I wish my brain was better about being adamant with my physical therapy and continuing the work. It's when I'm doing massive work weeks that I'm just so damn tired that it's hard to give myself 5 minutes to stretch and warm up. But the more that I make that a part of my process, the better that I function. And it's a bit of maturity involved as well, is that I don't need to play that young man's, it's the ego measuring, oh, I can carry more than you, or I can do this. There's times even on the stressful environments that I work on, I'll wave the flag at 4:00 p.m. I will say, mentally, I'm capped. I can feel it. I'm starting to do dumb things. And it's that awareness of, okay, we need to get out of the machine right now. And because it's that, I don't want to get to a situation where, I have a fatality. So obviously, that would be the end of it. But I don't want a life-altering injury just based on moving on ego.
I have one final question, I think. Obviously, we're talking about what your current job is, but you've got the other jobs that you're doing, which is clearly there in the background. Where do people find you? And also your employer, because you've spoken very highly of your employer. Where do they find them? And more specifically, where do they find you on Instagram or other social platforms?
So I work for Brian Pombo with All Mountain Construction. We're a Colorado-based company. We're not very heavy on the social media side of things, but LinkedIn, just my name, Kevin Soller, or Brian Pombo, and then All Mountain Construction. And then the fun aspect of my life, the social media side, my Instagram is Kevin Soller. It's just my full name. You found me if there's a lot of machine photos and ridiculous videos of me and my thoughts throughout the day. It's a fun place to connect. I do enjoy messaging with people. So if you send me a message, I will respond. It's a very genuine way that I've built this community across the world. Some of my favorite people that I talk to are in Austria and Switzerland, Germany, Australia, yourself in the UK, a good buddy of mine. Tom Lomack is the salesman for Menzi Muck in the UK, and we keep in touch a ton. And I think it's a fun way to keep in touch. So if anyone wants to hit me up and ask about what I'm doing, I'm coming into my off season. We do have some forestry work coming this point, but there's a lot of time in the machine. So if it's an interest, come find me on Instagram.